I'm going to turn this over to Jannie Vaught.
Hey, everybody.
And she is an expert in just gardening, sustainability, and I'm going to let her tell a little bit more about herself and some of the places you can learn more from her. She has a great column going on in the Llano News. And then we're going to start we're going to share our screen and we'll start the program. Thank you for being a part of this.
Yeah, this is exciting. We wanted to keep back to basics going, which we used to do here in the library. So now we're doing it through Zoom. And I'm new at this, so Trish is helping. I'm a generational gardener and my family were farmers in the Central California, grew grapes and cotton. And I have done 2 trainings through permaculture here in Texas. I did one through in Texas, and then my second one I did through Matt Powers online, which I got a scholarship for. So I do permaculture design, and I have installed permaculture into my property. We have a small property in town, but we have solar and water collection, and I grow a majority of our food. So I have been transforming this property and logging it. And then I write a column for the Llano News. I've done that for many years, and it's also in the Mason County. It's called Bloom Where You're Planted. And that name was given to me by one of the editors, one of the many editors I've gone through. It really is just kind of what are we doing now in the garden? When to plant, what to plant, how to do things, and keeping it human. Like we're both all standing there with a shovel in our hand, just having a chat. I invite you in, I give you a tour, and then I say goodbye. That's how I write my columns. And I want them to be easy, not too technical, but I do put some technical stuff, some botany. So are we ready to go? That's me.
Yeah, ready to go.
Okay, we're going to be working on the fall garden because we are deeply into it right now. And I mean, really, some people start in August and September. They've got their old tomatoes and squash and brassicas and different cucumbers and stuff like that are all pulled out, composted, or gone to the chickens. And they've already done some feeding in their soil. And are we all good? And they have starts in a greenhouse or in shade. I do it just on my potting benches in shade. I start my fall plants like eggplant, lettuces, anything like that in the fall garden stuff. So those now are in ground. And you really have to watch. Our heat has been really intense still. We've had 100-degree days. And we have had no rain, which has really affected that because a lot of it is that soil dampness. You always plant wet to wet. Dampen that soil before you put that baby in the ground or that seed in the ground because you're going to dry out the roots if you don't, and then you have plant failure. So that's kind of soil prep. You always need the NPK. Nitrogen grows green. And so if you have a problem, people call me all the time, I have nothing but leaves, but no tomatoes, because your nitrogen's probably pretty high, and you probably have a problem with aphids, which like that nitrogen. They like those green leaves. They're after the sugars. So you can also kind of judge what needs to be done to your soil. Put at least a 2-inch layer of compost. Yeah, in a sec. And get the grass out, have your composting moved out, and usually we just sweeten the soil with some lime or some ash, hardwood ash, or any kind of ash you have from your wood stoves. Or if you burn, you can put some biochar, worm castings if you're farther along into that. So get your soils ready, and we'll go on to the next one. You're seeing a little tiny temporary spot, that little fence is just to keep my chickens out because we had a lot of grasshopper pressure. Some people lost everything to the grasshoppers this year, but I used my hens, and I have 2 little roosters who were raised on our property. and one goes in the front and one goes in the back, and one has 2 hens and one has 10 hens. And what I use the ones in the back are really to get up into my plants and into my garden. And I have to be careful because you can see they scratch around and they can be little destroyers. So they can go from really good helping you to destroying things. So I just use temporary fencing and mesh and nets to keep that. These are my raised beds. You can see a picture. I cannot squat anymore. I'm 67. And so I had all this, I love to use things that are going to the dump that are, trash to some people and they're treasure to me. So this is old roofing and first and second cut cedar that was in a pile that nobody wanted. And so with help, we dug out all my in-ground raised beds and made these big, long, they're 4 feet wide so I can reach into them, and they're 25 foot long. And we filled them up with sticks and twigs. And then I put my raised bed soil, and I have amended my soil with coconut coir and different additives, and just kind of built up the soil, a lot of vermiculite. And then I put these cattle panel, I cut them in half, and I make hoops. So I have horizontal and vertical growing, and it's not showing much right now because this is the fall garden. You see some cotton, some flowers, and low growing things. So it's like, where are you going to grow? And look at your property. And that's one of the things of permaculture also. Things that have fruit and roots like sun, things that have leaves like a little shade. So if you're growing, into your warmer season, that's where you're going to put your fruit trees and your things like your tomatoes and peppers, cucumbers. They're going to need a lot of sun, but you're also going to need water. And some of your other things are going to be quite happy with semi-shade. Here in our area, we are zone 8A. We're kind of in a golden zone. We have a really, really nice area. We have too much sun sometimes, just intense heat, and you are looking for a little sun. So one of my things is I have put a lot of fruit trees and really encourage my pecans and mulberries, these kind of trees. I have a small orchard to bring me some shade. And I have found that they grow perfectly well in semi-shade. So find your placement, get your preparation going, and fence you can do as easy as you want, or as if it would your money and your time, whatever you want to do. So let's go on composting. Here's a picture. I have 2 little compost bins, and that you'll see a little water collection. I go from my main and I pump water into it with a pump and a long hose, and then I can pull off this and water the back end of my garden. But this is the bottom of last year's compost. We rake up our chicken yard heavily every 2 weeks. We clean it every week. We clean their nesting boxes, and we use only alfalfa because of the problem with graze-on, the broadleaf problem that everybody's spraying on grass. That stays for 7 years, and it goes for horses and cows, does not compost in the manure, and it is lethal to your garden. And what it does, it breaks down the cell growth, and they'll be growing normal till they get about 4 leaves, and all of a sudden they're all crazy because it breaks down the stacking growth of the cell structure in the plant, and then they're dead. And you get that in your garden and you're 7 years. That's what they're not telling you. They're telling you 18 months, but other gardeners are saying 7 years, and they're recommending to remove all your topsoil. How can you do that? So be careful. Ask what they have on their hay. If you use hay, your ag extension office might know. Your feed company is supposed to know, because they are supposed to know, have records of anything that is put on the hay that they're selling. So since alfalfa is not, it is a legume that is not on alfalfa. It's a little more spindly for us, but it's higher protein. It's nitrogen fixing. My chickens love it. And so we are using now exclusively alfalfa for our bedding and nesting material, and also leaves from our trees. Just trying to keep any of that graze-on, that is the brand name polyphenol, I believe is the technical name. I wrote a big column and put in the pictures of it. The editor edited it. It was, some people have it on their refrigerators too, and it's still a problem. If you go and buy horse manure or get horse manure from your friend, or cow manure, that can be in that. And you bring it home and you compost it, and now you have a dead garden. So this is our, I've been pulling out compost out of it. I do not have a chipper. So a lot of my dry good, bigger chips go in a separate pile. Often they go just to the dump because I can't take care of all of it. And I use all this, goes in to the garden. You can see my chickens have been in it, my 3 little hens. And use what you have, your trimmings. I don't have any garden kitchen waste, because anything from the kitchen waste goes to the chickens. They're my composters, and they eat it and they take care of it and they scratch it around. And then we take that and we go in, and that goes into the composter. It gets tilled, turned under. And then in a couple months, I've even brave enough where I just use that and put it in the far sides of the garden. I've never had any problem with burning because I don't have that many chickens. So it's not that intense, the chicken urine. So to till or not to till, I do both. One of our problems here is a lot of us have grass, mainly Bermuda, which was heavily planted. And like, I moved into a place and it was all lawn, nothing in it. It was just a great big lot with lawn. So for years I've been pulling, I call it to China and back, rhizomes of this grass. And I have found just by pulling and then putting weed barrier down has really been block it out, solarize it in black plastic to weed barrier, but down, especially on my walk, trying to mulch it out. It'll come up through my raised beds still, which are 4 feet tall. So I do till. Since I'm electric, I'm solar. I have a small Sunjoe little electric tiller, and then I can handle it. And it just barely scrapes the soil, quite honestly. But what it does, it winds up those rhizomes from that grass. And I'll have this big ball of grass. I cut it off, I throw it away, and then I go some more. So it's been kind of like my grass remover. So that is really a kind of our big thing here. And leave the leaves. Leaf mulch is vital. I have been working on getting when we first moved here about 11 years ago, we had fireflies, and we were just in love with the fireflies. And we saw what happened, and we started mowing too, not knowing those fireflies live in the first 6 inches soil up. They're vital, those first 6 inches. And I was mowing pretty close, and I was killing them. I didn't know it. And my neighbors are mowers. I mean, all you do is hear the mowers going. And they disappeared. So as I went through permaculture and I started learning, and actually not just learning and implementing it on our soils and building our soils, they were back. They were back this year. We had fireflies and we were so excited. My mower is 6 inches higher, and I have an electric mower. It's, I have a long cord and I just plug it into my green and I do a little bit. I kind of mow paths. I have overplanted native grasses, buffalo grass, native flowers, getting ready to put in a cover crop right now, which is hairy vetch, crimson clover, and Elbon rye, which is you can get it here in Llano, which is a grain rye. And this is going to feed our soils, feed our animals. Our cover crops, yes. Cover crops are good for fall. And right now you want to be going in with them. And I can do it as simply as taking my little tiller. I just make a rough swamp. I just kind of go along my property and make a little path. And I'll go like 10 inches more and make another little path, make another little path. I used to do it with my shovel, and I found that to be not as effective. And then I take my cover crop seeds and I mix them with potting mix. And I have a big bucket and I just hand cast. I hand broadcast, and then I go over the top and I just kind of pat it down, take the back of my shovel or my rake, and hope that the ants and the birds do get some of it. Or those little harvester ants, they will clean you out pretty fast. They're really interesting. But I believe in all things need to eat, and there's enough for everybody. So if you have a problem with that, you can come back over with some more potting soils or some of your leave or your compost and use the back of your heavy rake and kind of pat it down. I even walk on it and give it a little spritz with some water until we get some rain. That needs to have soil and water contact for the mycorrhizomes to wake up those seeds. That's what it takes to wake up the seeds. Okay, to till or not to till, I'm a little bit of a tiller and I don't till too much. I do not till deep. I do have a broad fork, which I just put in, step on, and crack the soil and just get some oxygen into the soil. We tend to have red loam. We tend to have some really clay patches and kind of breaking that up. And I don't do anything when I do that, I'll kind of lift it up and look, and I have a lot of worms. And so when you put carbon back into the soil, which you're doing with cover crops, and you're leaving the leaves and you're leaving the sticks and twigs to go in there, and that eventually the nature comes and pulls that down in, and it's feeding all the little worms and all the creatures down in there. And all of a sudden it'll start getting, instead of like walking on hard pan, it's squishy. You will walk and it'll be soft, like walking in a forest. So, and this doesn't happen instantly. This takes seasons, years and seasons. You have to keep doing it and staying true to it. And that's the thing about gardening is it is a process. It takes time. It's not going to happen like right now. I see people want to prep and they think, oh, I got my seeds and I'm going to grow food. Oh, you should have started learning this a couple years ago. You should have started your soil a couple of years ago. I'm not saying you can't put some potting soil in some buckets and grow a little food, but to really feed yourself and to learn your property and get acclimated to your soils and your climate and your seeds acclimated to your climate and your soils takes it. Am I talking too much? Okay. All right, go next one. Clean up your garden. Soil test. I did do a soil test because I was involved with master gardeners, really were wonderful. And I went to the ag office, and you could get an extension office, and or they send you to somewhere. You go online and they'll send you the kit, and it tells you how to dig up, how deep, all through your property, and you put it in little bags, and it's marked. And then it goes in and it's attested, and then you get sent back a breakdown of your soils and what you're missing and what you have. And we were all looking, and it seemed like from the whole area, we're all pretty much the same. So we were missing a lot of minerals. We were somewhat mineral deficient. One of them was boron, which you can fix by just using 20 milton borax. I learned that also in permaculture. It's just 20 million borax, and you get a box and break it up and just sprinkle it over your yard. The same thing with lime. I use a certain mineral compound that I buy through my feed store. It's not azomite. I found azomite to be a little too expensive for me, but another company had a mineral compound, which every 2 years I put that down. I just hand broadcast it around. And it'll tell you what you need in your certain areas. And, if you have big, heavy areas of clay, that can be where you really broad fork and break it up and pull that over, put some compost down, and then lay that clay back down over the top, then overplant it and let nature do its thing and break you down. So you can do soil testing. A lot of people recommend it every couple of years. I do it by looking at last year's problem with blossom end rot. That is a calcium uptake, and it's not necessarily you don't have enough calcium, and it's that in the soil it's not balanced. So it's bringing that balance back to that soil. And I always go back to compost. It's natural, it's free, it's available. That can be even using fish emulsion, seaweed emulsion. I use this stuff called I call it what do I call it? We used to call it compost tea. I do make compost tea. Fetid swamp water, you'll see a little more about that. And I just have a big black bucket with a lid, And I use all my green trimmings, nothing too diseased. If it's really diseased, it goes away. And some chicken manure and some soil, and I fill it up with water and I put the lid on it and I let it work for a couple of days and I pull that out. And my rule of thumb really is dilute. You can't hurt if it's diluted. Always dilute. Go, make it easier because you can't take it out. You can always add more. And I like to go things with water. I do use some organic tomato tone, it's called. And that company has some really good organics that are just sprinkled around and you scratch it in with a fork around the root system. Works really good. We tend to be, I just said that mineral deficient because I'm looking at this one. That's what we just covered right now. And calcium, okay, back. If my tomatoes, peppers, even squash, zucchinis can have where the blossom end will be rotten. That is that calcium uptake. And by doing this every year, I have depleted. Some reason I have depleted. Now, when I feed it, they're taking it up. And every 2 to 3 weeks, I need to kind of repeat that feeding. So I actually write it on a calendar and I do a water drench. I like using that diluted watery, which I use my rainwater in a bucket and a sprayer, whatever I have. And then if my tomatoes are showing that, I have never been able to pull them out of it. Some people say you can. I just take them down. I take them out. They're gone. And I learn and I go in and I plant something else. I am in the soil and I will put some lime on it. I will put some phosphorus, put some bone meal. There's your calcium. And I will turn that under. I'll let it sit a couple of weeks and I'll replant. And if I have tomatoes to replant, I will replant them, but I have never found that I can fix them because that is going to tell me for next year, I need to get that balance again back in the soil with compost. Is it too late to do an ag extension test for this year? I don't think so. Call them. I think they do it year round. I'm not really sure. Call the office. Jamie's down there and the girls. They're very helpful. They really are wonderful. I like it. You can just walk in the door and they talk to you and they'll get on their computers and help you out. Plus they have all the written material. What do you need to know? They just have it hanging on the walls and you can come home with in hand, even how to can. They have great stuff there. And it's an underused, in my opinion, an underused place for gardeners and farmers. I'm sure a lot of people serious farmers and growers are hooked up with their ag extension office, but they're very wonderful, especially for us, just home gardeners. They're really helpful. Okay. Do your own quick test. Oh yes, we talked about that. We were going to do a little show. You can take a quart jar, it can be an old mayonnaise jar, whatever, and fill it half full, go deep in your soil, get to the grass, dig about 4 or 5 inches and get a good cup of that soil. Bring it up, put it in your jar and fill it with water, just tap water. Shake it up and let it sit till the next day. And what you're going to see is you're going to see layers form. Actually, they'll form pretty fast. So the heavy ones are going to lay on the bottom to your carbon material on the top. So you're going to have clay, sand, loam, and then carbon, which is the little sticks and twigs and leaves and things floating around. And that is really going to tell you what you're dealing with in your growing area or your garden. So if you're heavy loam, you're right in the middle, yay, good for you. But if you're having a lot of clay, you're going to have to, work at maybe even doing some breaking it up and putting more carbon down in there, planting some roots. I tell you, I really love planting cover crops of turnips, icicle radishes, anything that's like that. A lot of big organic ranchers now are planting icicle big white radishes in their fields. They're just planting them in. Okay, they'll just cut a line and they'll plant these seeds in and they'll just water it and they let it grow. And then they turn their cows in. So and then the cattle come in And this was in the Ag Extension magazine 2 years ago. And then they paw and chew and eat and poop and do everything they do in this. And they're turning that. And those driven down roots are now breaking up that hard pan layer without having to go in and overtill. So we can even do it small. I am really, when she was over, Trisha was over, she saw I had these big white radishes, and they're now in a jar, and I make pickles out of them. I ferment. They're wonderful, and they're replanted again. I've always planted radishes day in, day out through the year. Radishes are my favorite, and I do like to eat radishes. And now a radish is a good thing to eat. They're completely edible, tops and bottoms, and they're really going to help us. I did do a thing where I did rutabaga. Rutabaga was kind of hard to find. I had to special order some seeds. Llano Feed got me some rutabaga seeds or rutabaga. They really are a northern crop. And we would cook them and eat them like a mashed potato. They're delicious. So go with those roots. We're in roots and shoots right now. We're not the high fruity things and vegetables and fruits. We're now roots and shoots, and we're working on our soils, and we're building that. Forward. That's all right. What will you plant? Okay, zone A, we're in 8A, and our first frost is, I think November, I wrote it down, 16th, and that's our first frost for here, and it's kind of backwards. First frost is fall. And so you have a lot, look at your seeds, how much time they need. You need 6 to 8 weeks. So back up November, go back. You can have been planted in August and September, but actually we can still plant now because we are in a gold zone. We have very long seasons. We tend to have hot seasons. And then we'll get a quick flip around, and those cold fronts will come through, and we'll talk about how we can cover and extend those plants. So you can do roots and shoots. This is brassicas. You can buy starts now at Backbone Valley. The Natural Gardener might have some. Backbone Valley still has starts, and they do have wonderful plants there. I go get my Swiss chard, and I get cabbage and Brussels sprouts, things like that, broccoli. I'm not a big one growing because I don't have a lot of space, and it takes a lot of space to grow enough broccoli to feed us. So I get more food if I'm planting kale, collards, things like that. So I kind of stay that way. And bok choy, tat choy, cresses, things like that. I like more the greens because I'm a smaller grower. But if you want to grow those, you can most certainly go and get them in. I did already I had some kale from the summer, and I had left it in a raised bed like you're looking at here. You can see those radishes right there we're looking at, and peppers. And I already had them eaten down. They had gotten into the brassica and eaten nothing else. So I took them out, fed them to the chickens, and I thought that, and it's an interesting bug season. We're having a lot of insect pressure. And so, I mean, some people can't grow anything. They've had so much grasshopper pressure that has just stripped. And then last year we had those bugs that, God, what are they called? They're a beetle, and they put off the blister beetles were out, and they were eating everything. I saw some horrible pictures where blister beetles just consumed this whole tomato plant in minutes. And they said, "Oh, you have these too." And I said, "No, I don't. I have been working on balance and bringing in good insects and using my birds and my chickens, as that I had no blister beetles." So I went in and I found that I had wheel bugs. And I do have this book. It's called The Better Bug Book. And I didn't know what it was. I put some water down, and these bugs came up to the top, and they were very large. They had spots on their side. I went and got my book, and they were wheel bugs. And guess what wheel bugs eat? They eat the blister bug um, when it's small. So nature had already taken care of the blister bug, which was really awesome. So now you can still go in with seeds right now. I just went in with a trial of some barley and some wheat. Then I'm black grained wheat. I like doing a trial, and it might be just 2 rows for a grower to see how it grows in my area. You want to have your garlic in now. You can do giant garlic. You can have your tat choys, your bok choys, your Asian greens. These can all go in seeds now, and just cut a little row in the ground or in your raised beds. I do use buckets. I use even 5-gallon buckets. I can grow things. I I like to experiment and like to try things. So it's also a wildflower time. And yes, go ahead and show that. We have, this is from the Ag Extension Office, and it's your growing chart for our area. And this is from the Ag Extension. We have it here at the library, and you can come and they'll make a copy for you. This sits on my refrigerator. I use this all the time. I have found it has changed because our seasons have shifted just a little. We're having some, call it wonky weather. And that's why you just by going outside, you can find out what you're doing. So wildflower planting is right now, and we are in the Monarch fly-through area. And then you can go on to Lady Bird Johnson. You can get all that information. I am working on bringing more wildflower ins. I have seen monarchs come through. I don't have any of the specifics for them, and I'm working on getting their milkweed. I did a column on it. It was really interesting about why they choose milkweed and how they eat it because of the latex in it. It is a poisonous plant, and their coloring and everything. They're really interesting. So now, along beside that cover crop, you can add some wildflower seeds in there, and that is just our wildflower seeds. And Native American seed out of Junction is phenomenal. They have the best seeds. They will answer the phone. You can go online, order them. They get them right to you. And you can even mix them with your cover crop. And when spring comes, they need that cold time. They'll get in the soil and they'll sit and wait. And all of a sudden, you'll see the seasons change, the soil temps change, because you're looking for the 60-degree for everything to wake up and start growing. And if you'll stop mowing, don't mow, let those flowers come up, let that cover crop come up, you will have a beautiful, beautiful, just a wildflower and a place for everything to live. It's wonderful. Okay. Compost tea and fetid swamp water. Through my training, I learned to do compost tea, and I have a 55-gallon barrel I fill with rainwater. I use Boogie Brew. I buy their compost tea. It's cheaper for me to buy just 1 bag of Boogie Brew. And I put it in this bag and I put it inside the water, and then it has just like an aquarium pump. And with the stones come in and it pumps the water, and in 24 hours, I have usable compost tea. It has to be used then. And I will drop my pump in it, or I'll put it in my buckets, and I just start spraying. I have, sometimes I'll move my drum into the front, whatever I'm going to brew it, so I'm not hauling water. I can just make it right there. I just bring a cord and put my pump in. Years ago, through what was that magazine we used to use? It had all the natural stuff in it, which really has changed now. All of us did bucket, and it's now called Fetid Swamp Water. That's through David the Good on YouTube. He's really funny and he's really good, plays guitar, sings, makes funny songs. But we used to take a bucket, we'd put some animal manure, we'd put greens in it, and we'd let it sit and ferment, and we'd stir and stir and stir it, and then we'd strain it, and then we'd make it into more water, and then that was our compost tea. They've kind of improved compost tea now that you can make it and spray it. I was making it and selling it, and that went pretty good, but there's a 24, 48 hour. Once you get it, you got to take it home and use it. So if you're going to the coast and you can get seaweed, bring some buckets, because I have been to the coast and found just miles of seaweed, and bringing that in. Also, soil needs salt, and there's a stuff called C60, and it's minute. It's just minute, but it has those sea minerals, and that's what seaweed has in it. And seaweed is really, if you can get stuff that has seaweed in it, and it's usually a concentrate. I believe Medina makes a seaweed and a fish emulsion. It's in a concentrate, and you can break it down. That is another way, and you can just put it in your water bucket and pour it right on the leaves and on the plant, and it won't hurt it, and it feeds the plant right through the leaves. So and leave the leaves. When you rake those leaves, you're removing all of the good, the anything that lives in the ground. You're getting rid of butterflies. You're getting rid of worms. You're removing everything. The leaves fall from the trees and stay where they are because that's where nature wants them to be. And if you want a path like I do, I'll rake a little path so I'm not slipping and sliding and I don't have snake issues or whatever. And I'll rake a little path through my raised beds, but everything basically stays where it is. If I get too many, I might rake up a little bit and put them in my compost area, but I try to let them lay on the ground. And then I'm always amazed. And by next spring, those leaves are gone. They've disappeared. The earth is taking them back in. They're back down into carbon. This is carbon sequestration at the basic point. Leaves need to stay where they are. And let's go to 8. Okay, this, I was talking about the aminophylline contaminated. It's a broadleaf herbicide. And again, this is poison. This will kill your garden. And I was standing there at the feed store, and some people came in to buy a roll of hay, and they roll it out on their garden, and they let it sit for a couple of weeks, and then they break through it, and then they plant their plants into the soil. And, you know, it's deep mulch growing. And they asked, because they have to ask, what are you going to use it for? And she said, we're going to use it for our garden. And he said, I will not sell it to you. And I was really impressed that they didn't. They said, it will kill your garden. This has this broadleaf herbicide on it, and we cannot sell it to you if you're going to use it for a garden. So be careful, ask questions, know where it's coming from. I've even had reports of people that horses ate it and these horses wound up with serious cancers and tumors and their mouth and even down on their legs, around their hooves. So, you know, it's a poison, and we need to ask questions. Why do we need to use it? I know my animals can pick through weeds. I'm not worried about it. But you need to be asking the right questions. And another thing happened in Florida where David the Good, he's really good on this, is that he went to the same dairyman and he would buy truckloads of, they have manure they clean out and it's set for years, and then they sell it. And they would go take a backhoe and they drop it in the back of the trucks, and he would come and he put it in a pile, and all the gardeners would come and take some and kill their gardens, kill them. He went back to the dairyman and said, you have broadleaf herbicides. He said, no, I don't. Well, let's go in. They walked into his, into the barn, and there it was. They had been spraying it. He didn't even know about it. They'd been spraying the hay fields because they often grow the hay, put it in rolls or bales or in stack hands. It's fed to the cows. The poop comes out, goes in the thing, cycle it through. And that's where the herbicide was. And it killed all their gardens. So lesson learned. Even some of the YouTubers who have very elite gardens in England and everywhere are telling you to watch for, and it goes by the name of Grazon is one of the names. And you need to ask for the broadleaf herbicide. Is it in there? And I like to try to just everything on my property. That's why I have chickens. I'm careful about what I feed them. That is, if you never know, even when you buy pellets, but I try to buy local, and I know who's making it. I buy alfalfa and I feed it to them. I grow greens and vegetables and I feed that to them. And then I know what is coming back into that cycle, back through. But for bigger places, it's almost impossible to do that. So it's just being an aware thing. Compost tea, rainwater. Okay, now we have had no rain. I don't know how many days we are, but it seems like I had like 6 drops yesterday, and that was it. We can go through long spells of no rain. I'm a kind of the do-it-yourselfer, and I like to, a lot of my stuff I was found out in fields. Nobody wanted. You want that old barrel? And if it's a food grade barrel, it didn't have chemicals, I'll bring it in. I'll put a faucet. I'll drill a hole and put a faucet in it. And I have even built little shed roofs that I can put a PVC pipe that I cut in half and catch rainwater in it. And anywhere I can catch water, I am catching water. Now, a lot of, elite gardeners say, oh, that's not enough. I'm sorry. I have kept pecan trees alive on 300 gallons of rainwater through that drought we had, just because I was very careful about how I went to the drip line and I hand did these trees every couple of days. I even saved shower water, dishwater. I was extremely aware. That drought taught me something, seriously taught me something. So I'm all for saving any kind of rainwater. I have little barrels all anywhere I can catch. This is at the end of my house. This will go, the faucet, you'll see a little faucet there. This waters my pecan trees. Right here, you'll see a little faucet sitting behind it. I jack them up on cinder blocks. This is our big one. And the big 500-gallon one, that's my little wild bird feeder. It's just an old dish thing nobody wanted. I painted it. And then you see I do save my water from my washing machine. Comes out right there. And then I'll drop a pump in this one. My house is my collector. It catches all my rain. It runs down into my gutter system. And I just have a funky corrugated thing that I catch it in there. I open it up and I pour it in there. I'm not going to because I am not going to drink this. I'm not doing first flush or anything, lights or anything. Let me tell you, that water in there is super clean. And at the end of the season, I tip it upside down. I rinse it all out. It's clean, ready to go. And the only thing I add to is I might drop in mosquito pellets. So I don't have mosquitoes in it. And the hummingbirds, if you encourage hummingbirds, they will take care of the mosquitoes because that's what they feed their babies. And so like this other picture, this comes off the other side of my house and one dumps into the other one. And I have them jacked up on cinder blocks so I can get a bucket under there. So I'll either bucket it or I'll drop my little pump in it with a hose on it and spray it. Anywhere you can catch rainwater, catch rainwater. We have no guarantees. We might get a flood and we might get a drought. I use drip systems. I pulled in new lines because I was tired of dragging hose. I hired somebody and we dug and set new lines in. And my faucets, I have faucets at the end of all the raised beds and areas where I needed it. And off that faucet, I have a chlorine filter, which I buy in bulk from RV supplies. And it lasts a couple of years because I don't run a lot of water through it. So it comes out of my faucet through my chlorine filter. Then it has another adapter on it. And then there's my soaker hose. Black soaker hose goes in. And then into the black soaker hose, I have flat soaker systems. And that I just turn it on. I don't even need timers anymore. You can put a timer on it, hand timer. They wear out really fast. I use my kitchen timer sometimes. If I'm in and out of the house, I'll set it 1 hour and it beeps up. Time to turn off the water, time to change the water. All of that, I have an old baking thing. I'm really a kind of make it easy on myself because more doodads that need batteries, it's broke down fast. And then I have a stack of stuff, plastic. I don't know what the heck to do with. So look at doing some drip systems. I use soaker tape. Sorry, I couldn't remember. And I went to Haas Tools and I learned how to use silver tape. I did not buy their system, but I went to Drip Works, and I buy it in rolls. And it goes in, and it's already I buy the 6-inch, I buy the good stuff. Every 6 inches, it has it, the emitter is built in. And I just come off my black with an adapter, come off my black tube. I lay down my silver tape, and every 6 inches, I can plant a plant, or I can just do my greens and things like that. And then you just turn it over and kink it off on the end. You don't have to buy the fancy thing. You can. It's like a figure 8 to block off the end. And this is really, it's about controlling that water, catching it, controlling it, and bringing that water where you want it to be. The same thing with your compost. Make it where you're going to use it. Don't have to keep hauling. I'll tell you, poop out. You get tired of it. You won't want to do it if you're like way far away. That's why I have little composting areas through my garden. And the fetid swamp water. Right now I have some ready to go. I will just dip it out and put it in 5-gallon buckets of rainwater. And then I pour it on. And this is through hand. Sometimes I use a spraying method, but any way you can make some compost off your own property, then again, you're away for that poison issue. And using compost teas, dilute it. You can always add more. Just feed compost tea. It really is remarkable. I didn't know about compost tea until I really started using it and saw the effects. I mean, within 24 hours, you'll feed a compost tea and it's just like up and working. Like yesterday, I pulled out some cress that wasn't doing good, and I put it in a pot and I fed it some compost tea, which had a lot of fish emulsion in it. And it's standing up. It's not dead anymore. I'm quite surprised. So really look at using, there's a lot of education on compost tea. And like I said, Haas Tools, they have wonderful YouTube. You don't necessarily, they have good seed systems, and they have good wheel hose and things you can do by hand. I do use their seeder. And so you can go to these places and learn. They do offer free education and free learning on YouTube. Regular watering is done. Our first frost is, like I said, November 16th to the 20-something, who knows. What you're looking for is a couple of days before is that, look at those bottom temperatures. If you're working for 32 degrees, that's the freeze point in the soil. And before you get to that, start doing some of that leaf and hay mulch cover. Like I have a lot of perennials, and I love Turk's Cap. And it is a native adapted here. It has just fed, and it is edible. It makes an edible fruit, but it still is in flower right now. And I tell you, the birds and the butterflies and the snout-nosed brown butterflies are still working that, who have come through. And when it dies back, I just chop it off. I chop and drop it. I just go through and I cut it. I lay it down, and then I'll put some more hay or leaf mulch on it. And what it's going to do, it's going to make a blanket. What you're trying to do is keep that soil warm. You're going to blanket those. So if you have some perennial flowers you really like and you want to keep them, just chop them, leave them down, and cover them with hay mulch. You know that peppers are perennial, and they will live for several years. And so right now, my peppers are really coming on. I've got some ghost peppers that are just like loaded. And those, as we get farther, and I'll be watching those temps. I have a small greenhouse. I will dig them up. I will put them in a 5-gallon bucket. I'll water them with some compost tea, and they're going to go in a greenhouse. And they will stay in there. People even transplant tomatoes and do that. Just Oh, you want to show the greenhouse? There's my little greenhouse. Yes, and that, I mean, it's simple. It's only 10 by 20, something like that. It has an aluminum frame. Right now, I'm just setting it up with lick buckets, and it's actually alive in there. If I could take you in. And it's in a shady area, rocky, shady. I can never grow anything in this area. I wanted to extend my growing season. I want to protect my perennials. I wanted to be able to start. I'll put a light in this. I wanted to start plants in here. I can put a table in and put grow lights in it. Just run a wire to my green plug. And then in the summer, we will take this off. It's very easy. You just unzip it, we'll roll it down, and we'll put shade cloth over the top, which I have big rolls of shade cloth, which was given to me. Somebody was taken to the dump. You want this? Yes, I'll take shade cloth. My God, I can't believe it that somebody would take that to the dump. Never been used, still rolled up. And if you let, our community is small, and if people know that you like to reuse garden things, they will just show up at your house with it, which is wonderful. So I'm extending my growing season. I'm just getting into this. I've had a greenhouse years ago, and it was set up with overhead sprinklers and everything. And I did enjoy it, and I used it a lot. Um, you can buy, there's two kinds of mesh cover, and we blocked out the name, but I really like this one, and it has the hoops and everything, and I bought it on eBay, and it's a tunnel, and it really is an insect tunnel, because I had problems with, most of us do, you can see it right here, it's got radishes under it right now. And I got butterflies in it, and I just lifted it up, and all the butterflies got out. It was easy. I just walked down there in the little hoops, and I just collect the hoops, and I put it back in the package when I'm not using it. But I've also found I can leave this, and I could put frost cloth. So there is a difference between frost cloth and insect barrier. This is more of an insect barrier because it has a wider weave on it. Okay, and you can crank it down. You can see the front. You can clutch it down really tight, and you can take soil or rocks and hold down the sides. We're done. We got 10 minutes. We need to hurry. Okay, so fiber frost cloth, you can buy yards and yards and yards. And if you're going to use it, buy it in bulk. It's cheaper in bulk. And I use hoops. I use PVC pipe. I also have started using some 4 to 6 foot bamboo because I was looking for more of a natural product to use instead of having to search for wire to make the hoops. And the lower you go, what you need is your plant, you need an air gap, and then you need your fiber cover. And one of the things that has really worked is burlap. And I could buy it at the buttery store, believe it or not. It's called a wool bag, WOOL. It's what they put wool in. You get like 12 feet. I just unsew it, and I have 6 to 12 feet of nice burlap, good stuff to use for frost protection. I have found the burlap works the best. It really stops, and you can cover trees. You can cover small fruit trees. Just put some hoops over them, cover them with burlap. Especially young fig trees, they need a good 5 years before they get really on their own for frost. And my fig trees and my fruit trees, I do lay in after I prune them, and I lay in. I don't leave the prunings in. I move them. I burn them and make biochar out of it. But I do put leaf mulch, and I'll feed them just slightly in the fall and let them go to sleep. Okay. We're about out of time. I'm talking too much. Watch for those temps. Watch for those temps. 60 in the spring and 32 in our time. And you can take your temperature really quick. I use a meat thermometer, and when our temperatures start rising, I'm looking for that 60-degree temperature to plant starts, or even to go on seeds in the spring. I go into the same spot. I go 4 inches down with my meat thermometer, and I take the soil temperature, 10 o'clock every day. And once I get 60 degrees for 4 to 5 days, I will go ahead and take a chance and dig it up and start planting. So that's pretty easy instead of just trying to do charts. Some people go in too early, and then you plant plants and they're stunted. They're not going to grow. So I'd rather be a little late because you have a long growing season. I'd rather be a little safe and not have to be thrown back and wait again, especially if I have starts ready to go in. You can always hop them to a bigger, take them out of their small tray and put them in a bigger tray, a bigger soil thing, let them sit for another 5-6 days and keep them damp. Remember, wet to wet, and then put them in the ground, and then you'll have more success. Okay. Right on. You see the picture, my son made that for me. It's on one of my walls. And he made that out of an old bed frame or old chair frame or something. He said, "Hey, Mom, look at this." Yeah, show off books. Here at Llano, Tommy, our library manager, has done a magnificent job. We have a library for gardening and preserving like you would not believe. And here's one, winter harvest. And he actually shows you how to grow in the winter. And he shows you hoops, how to use PVC, very detailed, more than I have a chance to tell you here. Really good. Gaia's Garden is wonderful. This is what's his last name? Hemingway. He's one of the first builders of permaculture. He has passed. He's not with us anymore. But this is my first book I ever had. We have it here in the library. Gaia's Garden is wonderful as a reference, how to do it. Use books. I love books. And this is Matt Powers. We have his books, Permaculture Student Design Books. I believe this is for school children. And then he has this one, wonderful, Permaculture in a Nutshell. What do you want to learn? And I did my permaculture training here with Pete Van Dyke, and it was wonderful. It changed my life. And hopefully they will be able to start back up again because of COVID. They couldn't do the groups, and they have a beautiful permaculture farm in Blanco on the Blanco River. Wonderful, wonderful to go. And hopefully Pete is going to be doing some Zooms for us. And he did Drought Proof Texas. And I'm encouraging him to bring this back to life. So hopefully we'll be able to do that pretty soon. Questions? We good? Yes. Right. Yes. Yes. Seasonal. Yes, it's going to go through and join up to the soil, and then the uptake is going to come back in. Just like if you grow pecans, you need to zinc them because we're zinc deficient. And when the first leaves come out, they have to be soft green leaves. Then you buy zinc, and I put it in a bucket and I put it in my sprayer. And I wait for a little bit of a warm, windy day, and I will stand out there with my sprayer and my hose, and I fill up my bucket, or it has a container with the zinc, and I let the wind kind of feed my pecan trees. And zinking them will bring on the fruit because we're zinc deficient here for fruit. And that seems to be, I zinc, and I do spray them with oil in the winter to stop any insect borers. We tend to have borer problems with fruit trees, especially peaches and pears will get borers. So you want to do the organic oil when it's cold and wintry, after everything's pruned and it kind of sleeps. So you go out and you spray that dormant oil. You can buy it at the feed store or probably Tractor Supply. Read the directions how to mix it. And again, I use my little sprayer with my hose hooked up to it because I have pretty good hose pressure. And I will spray them with that. Or you can even douse them. If you aren't able, you can use a bucket that has a nozzle head, or just dumping it on. You need to get as much as the bark area as you can cover with that dormant oil. And those are really good. Caring trees. Awesome. This was fun. Yakety yacked. We will have more stuff. We're going to do butterfly gardens. We're going to try to hit a little bit of permaculture. We're going to try to do a little more compost teas and seed saving. We started the seed library here, and seeds. Oh my God. Seeds are so important right now. I went to buy seeds and out of stock. And so if you have saved seeds, how to save seeds, we have all the books there that you want. And we have heritage seeds here. We're about out of seeds. So I'm going to do a campaign of getting more seeds back in. You can get Elbin, rye, from the local feed store right now, and you can just buy it by the pound. It's like 50 cents for a pound as your cover crop. It's a grain rye, not a rye grass. The grain, which is going to feed more. It'll make a little grain head. So anyway, seeds are really crucial because what are we going to do without seeds? We aren't going hardly anywhere without them. So, and how to save the seeds when you're growing your okra seeds, your tomato seeds, those pepper seeds. I am constantly growing heritage plants, and I will leave some on and I'll let them fruit till they're almost rotting. That tomato is ripe, and then I will take and I will save seeds. I mark them and I dry them and I package them. And then I have seeds. I am not dependent on a seed company. We're done. Bye.
Before you guys go, and Janie and I can be together.
Hello.
Hi. Just want to let you know, she gave us so much great information that you can find this. We're going to upload it to our Llano County Library, Texas YouTube channel. And again, you go to YouTube, Llano County Library, Texas YouTube channel under Llano County Library, Texas, and you'll find all different kinds of videos, including Janie's video will be up. And maybe we can even get her to come in before the next big video and do a little demo of how you do your own DIY soil test. And we'll put that up as a film. I think that would be really cool. So thank you so much for joining us. And
happy gardening.
Happy gardening. Take care.